Okay, I am going to go ahead and get started. Looks like everyone who might be attending are here. I haven't seen any new faces or names roll in here lately. So let's get going with today's Wednesday webinar. Again, this is Scott Clayson. I'm the Director of Marketing here at TimeSolv, and this is our monthly session where we look at the tips and tricks to get the most out of your TimeSolv account. As always, for those that have been in this webinar before, as you may know, we send out a weekly tip of the week email. Generally, it's every Monday with, again, either new information for a release that's just come out, a new feature focus, or just the idea of taking a look at things within the TimeSolv application that you may not have been aware of, you may have forgotten about, but we want to make sure that you are up to speed with all of the things that you can do within our program. And then we take those essentially 4 weeks worth of tip of the weeks and condense them down into this webinar, which we do the second Wednesday of every month. Everyone is on mute. There are opportunities to ask questions. If you'd like, you should see a Q&A icon down at the bottom of your screen as you're viewing this here on Zoom. Everyone should be seeing my screen right now and seeing the PowerPoint that I have up with the slide that this is in fact our Wednesday webinar. And we have a full hour booked out. I think today's webinar will definitely take no more than 45 minutes at the very most, perhaps even just 30 minutes. I think it might be a little bit shorter today. As we get through this, unless we have a lot of questions. And as always, I reserve the right to not have the answer to the question and can check in with our support team if needed, if there's something I can't answer. And I always do follow up in an email, which will be sent to you with a link to a recording of this webinar so that you can watch it at your convenience. All right, I think I got all of the nuts and bolts out of the way here. Let's go ahead and take a look at our topics for this month. Can't believe it's March already. It's actually raining here in Minneapolis where I'm located. So anytime it's raining in early March here in Minnesota, that's a win in that it's not snowing. So I'm pleased about that. Okay, today we are going to take a look at 4 topics. One is a relatively simple thing to do, but can be kind of powerful in how the application behaves for you. And that is discussing inactivating clients or matters. We will cover another topic that is an oldie but a goodie. We do this quite often, but it's always worth coming back to, and that is how to manage contacts within TimeSolv. It can get a little tricky depending on how and what contacts you want to receive an invoice, and that's really where you need to make sure you have it set correctly. Then from a security point of view, I want to discuss once again, I know I've done this before, two-factor authentication and making sure that if you are a firm that is concerned about or has policies in place about two-factor authentication, that you know how that can be turned on and operated within TimeSolv. And then the last one is the ability to apply 2 different types of taxes. And I use the word taxes, but really it could be any sort of additional fee that can be calculated or that you want calculated on an invoice. We introduced this maybe about 6 or 7 months ago, maybe even closer to a year. I think it was last summer at some point, the ability to do this. And this really affects the firms that we have in Canada, but it can also be impactful for if you're a law firm that does have to apply tax, but you also have an admin fee of some sort, or just some sort of overhead fee that you might place on top of the regular fees that you charge. And you need to do that perhaps in 2 layers. So there's the ability to do that in TimeSolv that we will cover. Okay, that is what we're looking at here today. So let's just jump right into it. My apologies, I had to cough there. You guys didn't hear it because I at least got to the mute button soon enough. Okay, so we're in my TimeSolv application here. And what we want to talk about first is making clients and matters in which you've completed work on inactive in the system. And the obvious question is, well, why do I care, Scott? Why should I do that? And there's a couple of reasons behind it that we've learned just recently from some of our clients. One is when you're making time and expense entries, when you go to, if you're the type that likes to double click for the full list of all your clients and matters, it'll show you a really long list here, right? These are all my clients, these are all my matters. But if they if you have a bunch of inactive clients and matters that you're no longer doing work for, why would you want them to show up in this list? Okay, so the idea is by making them inactive, they won't appear in this list. Even if you are just typing in the name of a client or matter, as you start typing, and it's going to pull up all your active matters and clients. And again, so this can speed things along when it comes to finding the right client and matter that you want to make an entry for. The other issue that can arise, we've come to find out, there are some clients of ours, customers of ours, they'll have like 25,000 matters, 50,000 matters. And when you get into large volumes, tens of thousands of these type of matters, it can put a load on the database. And by that, I mean, it's just going to take a long time to load up a screen like this when you have 25,000 to choose from. Same thing that happens over in our mobile app as well. And we've had some people talk about that with the mobile application. So one of the answers can be, hey, let's go through and just from it's kind of like there's a terminology in marketing that we use when it comes to the lists that we have in our systems to reach out to prospect lists, and that's called list hygiene. And in this case, I would say this is matter hygiene of just you want to keep in marketing, you want to keep your lists clean. And I think when you're managing all of your matters and clients, you want to keep it clean by only really having access to the ones that are active. So what do we do there to make our clients and matters active or inactive? You go under clients, and by the way, I'm using a different, those of you who've been on this webinar before, I'm using a different TimeSolv demo account that is actually our TimeSolv Pro. So that's why you're going to see clients and projects instead. Long story as to why I'm using not my normal demo account. I won't bore you with the details, but that's why you're seeing some of the terminology just slightly different. So when you go under clients and projects, or clients and matters, as the case may be for your instance, you should already hopefully know that by default, it's displaying the clients and matters of just your active clients. So again, this is another way of paring down the list of all of your clients and matters that you aren't working on anymore. If you have 25,000 matters, again, you're going to have a lot of pages. Well, what if half of them aren't even active? You're not doing any work from them. You never do any time and billing for them anymore. They don't have a balance due, and none of that. There's no unbilled time entries, all of that sort of stuff. Let's make them inactive. No reason why you need to keep them open. So to go ahead and make a firm inactive, you just simply click on the name of the firm, or the client, I should say. And in the general tab here, you'll notice about 2/3 of the way down, we have this status row. And this is where you simply would change them from active to inactive. Simple enough. And some of you may not even know. You can create, clients as well that are just prospects. You're not doing active work for them yet. But this is where you would make them inactive. Now, here's the one issue and a question I could see arising. We don't have a way currently to do that in mass in TimeSolv. However, if you do have a large number of clients you need to make inactive, the best way to accomplish that without having to go in one by one, and it's not an elegant solution, but it is a solution, is you can export out all of your clients and matters. You can choose clients here, okay? Or in this case, projects or matters, or you could just do clients. You can export out, excuse me, let me go over to the export tab. I was doing the import tab. You can export out all of your clients, open that up in Excel. You can make the only thing you need to change is the one column that will be designated for status, and you would just make the ones inactive you want to make inactive. I'll download this to make it even easier for you all to see. So this is the way you would do this in bulk. And again, our support people can walk you through how to do this if you're a little unsure. As you can see, all of the, and in this case, I only have like 45 or so. But I can come down and there's going to be the status of active. You would simply just, for example, if this is inactive, and I hope everyone knows, you could do one of two things if you have a whole list here, is I can click the little bottom right-hand corner and drag this down, and that'll change everything to whatever this cell was. Or you can simply copy and paste, or you could, copy and then just select the ones and paste. Much faster, obviously. Then you would just import this back into TimeSolv, and that's the only thing you've changed, and it would allow all of those in batch clients that you need to make inactive do it a lot faster. And again, if you have any questions about how to do this, you're a little unsure, our support people do this all the time for our customers, so don't sweat that. Okay. You can also make specific, a couple things I want to mention with when you make clients inactive. First of all, when you go to do that and save it, you're going to see a list of details at the bottom of the screen confirming that you want to do that. If there are unbilled time or expense entries, unpaid invoices, an opening balance, unallocated credits, or trust balances. So it'll basically give you a warning like, hey, look, there's some active information that you may want to take care of before inactivating a client. So just be aware that you'll be able to see like, oh gosh, I have an unbilled time entry from 3 years ago I didn't even know about. Perhaps it'll show you have those, and then you could certainly just do a search in the time or expense area or whatever you need to be to take care of that before you make them inactive. But it's a good way to clean up your clients and matters. If you need to do that on a specific matter, go into that particular matter, and that's simply just an active or inactive box that you toggle right here under the General tab, active, toggle that box on or off. Okay, any questions on making clients or matters inactive? Okay, no questions is good. All right, let's stay in the kind of clients and matters and management area. And let's get into, as I say, an oldie but a goodie, managing contacts in TimeSolv. TimeSolv would recommend that for any of your clients that you create contacts at the client level. You don't, unless you have multiple matters that have different contacts for that matter, it's going to be best just to keep your contacts at the client level. So let's go ahead and open up this client and say this Clayson Consultants is a new client. I'm going to go to my contacts tab. And this is where, as you can see, I already have, myself as a client, as a contact set up here. You could, if you wanted to, add a new contact. If there are existing contacts for whatever reason that are in TimeSolv already, that you haven't created them before, you've already created the contact, but they're not necessarily associated with a specific client, you could simply come under here to this associated and say, show me all contacts in TimeSolv. Here's all the contacts I have in my system. And then you could do a search for them. Once you find that person, say Derek Bardo, I want to associate with this client, Clayson Consultants. I could come over here to associations on the far right, and I could, again, find the client and the matter and make them a contact. But more importantly, let's talk about the type of contact that you have. As you'll notice, I have the same contact here, but they're associated. There are two different types of contacts. By default, when you create a new contact, it's going to give you a type of main. You have 4 different options in your contact management: a main contact, an optional invoice contact, related party, and other. The two that I'm going to really talk about is the main and the optional invoice and what the difference is. A main contact is they will be placed on an invoice. Their name, their address, all their information will be placed on the invoice as the main contact. Unless, this is the big unless there's a contact who is designated as optional invoice. So in this scenario, you may have your client is, I don't know, let's say they're the president of the company that you're doing work for. But that president, she tells you, hey, I want my invoices sent to my accountant, not to me directly. And I want to make sure that my accountant's name, I want his name on my invoice, on the invoice. In that case, then you would make that contact the optional invoice. Then they will be placed on the invoice. They'll be the ones you email it to and so on, the optional invoice. Okay, that's at the client level. Now at the matter level, I'm going to click on this matter. When you look at the contact tab, when you're at the matter level, it's going to show you who is at the client level. In this case, it's me again here. Okay, and TimeSolv will check to see, do you have any contacts at the matter level? If not, then it'll go up to the client level and look for contacts there and use that contact, either main or optional invoice. You can certainly designate a different contact at the specific matter level and call it main or optional invoice. So what TimeSolv does, because it's built sort of on a hierarchy, when you generate an invoice against a particular client and matter, it first will hit the matter level and say, is there a contact, yes or no, associated at the matter level? So let's say the answer is yes, there is a contact. Okay, is it an optional invoice type or is it a main? If it's optional invoice, boom, it's going to place that person's information on the invoice. If it's main, if there's no optional invoice person, it's just main as a contact type, it'll place that person on the invoice. If there is no contact associated at the client level, if there is no contact associated at the matter level, it'll drive up to the client level, one step up. And it'll again kind of go through the hierarchy. Is there a contact type of optional invoice? Yes. Okay, put their information on the invoice. No, it's just a main contact. Okay, then we'll put that information on the invoice. You may not have any contacts associated with your clients, and that would just be an invoice that is left blank. So I hope that's clear for everybody about the hierarchy and how to manage contacts. You also can, if you think you have duplicates, if you go into your clients and contacts right here, again, this is the list of all of my contacts, you can search for potentially duplicate contacts. So this is where we will look for what we designate we think are potential duplicates. Okay, questions on contacts, managing contacts. One thing I should mention that we've, again, to try to give a little flexibility in what you might, kind of information you might need to include at the contact level. And this is something relatively new, kind of a, I don't want to say minor deal, but we have added, most systems will have an address line 1 and address line 2. We've also added an address line 3, which is basically an open text box to allow you to add more information for the contact that would appear on an invoice, whatever you might need to add to it. So that's open-ended. But again, it just gives a little flexibility if you need more information to appear on that invoice for whatever reason. So I just want to make that clear that we have that ability to do that. Okay, questions? Awkward silence. As people type, maybe, maybe not. Those of you that have sat in my webinars before know that I don't mind having long pauses to give people time to think. Do I have a question, actually? All right, well, let's move on. We do have a question. I knew it. Is there a way to export a list of all okay, so that's not really around any topics we're covering today. Is there a way to export a list of all documents? Rob, you're throwing me for a loop here. I haven't looked into the document stuff in a while. I don't believe so. It's all right. Let's go to our export. No, it doesn't look like we do have the ability to export out a list of all the documents you may have set up in TimeSolv or that you have listed in TimeSolv. Good question. Double check with support, and I'll double check as well. You can email them at support@timesolv.com and get a little bit more detailed about what you're looking for, and they should be able to help you out. You're welcome, Rob. Okay, let's talk about two-factor authentication. I know I've talked about this before, but with today's security game, especially if you're at a firm or a company that has several, maybe more than 7, 8, 9 employees, you very well might have policies in place about the how to access your software. And frankly, if you don't have 2FA, two-factor authentication turned on for a lot of your software that you subscribe to, you should. I have it personally turned on for my Google accounts. I have it turned on for Facebook. I have it turned on for Twitter. I have it turned on for as much as any software that offers 2FA, as we call it, for short. I will have it turned on. I think, this day and age with data breaches and so on, it's critically important. And frankly, it's, we know data has been stolen, like I will give you a personal example. Like I was getting emails back in the late fall, because I know I've been part of some breaches of stuff that happened with some of the major, whether it was Equifax breach, that sort of thing. All of a sudden I'm seeing like somebody's logged into my Netflix account from Saudi Arabia. It's like I got that. I changed the password immediately, but they weren't able to necessarily watch anything. So anyway, that's my little rant on 2FA. So for TimeSolv specifically, how do we turn that on if you want to turn that on? We want to go under Account to Settings. And under Security here, you will see a column over here on the left for two-factor authentication. Right now, it's disabled. If you decide to turn it on, you can determine how often you want to require your users to complete the two-factor authentication process. Again, I'll give you an example. At TimeSolv here, we use Office 365 for managing a lot of our business processes. We have a monthly required two-factor authentication. So every 30 days, I'm required to go in and get the access code to get back into my Office 365 accounts. And you can see with TimeSolv, you have a variety of options, from every single login they do, which is pretty rough, but if you want to get that secure, you can, to just once a day, to once a week, to monthly. Once you choose any one of these options, then you can choose how you want to authenticate by using an Authenticator app, which most security experts will say is the most secure way in which to use two-factor authentication, or by email. And I think we should all know by now what I'm talking about here when I say two-factor authentication. This is where you're going to get an email. A lot of people will get text messages with some sort of 6-digit code they then have to enter on their screen on their computer. Basically, they're making sure that you are who you think you are, and you also have a secondary device, a second factor, and it's a mobile phone in most cases to do that, or email, and checking your email to do that. So email is pretty straightforward. If you choose that, then you're going to get an email every login, every time you try to log in, or daily or weekly or whatever you choose, you're going to get an email with a 6-digit code that you'll be required to enter before you can access TimeSolv. So let's talk about actually what happens if you do it by Authenticator app. So I'm going to hit save. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to log out of this account. And I'm going to go to log back in. When I go to log back in, it's not going to let me because I have two-factor authentication set up. And I'm setting it up for the first time. And it says if you don't have a two-factor, if you don't have an Authenticator app yet, click here to install it. And it's going to give you the options. We recommend using either Microsoft Authenticator, Google Authenticator works. There's many others. And you can scan either an iPhone or Android to go straight to the app stores to get these. I highly recommend the Microsoft Authenticator app. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. I'm going to start sharing my iPhone so you can see how it looks from an iPhone point of view. So let's share my iPhone. Okay, you guys should all see my phone right now. And on my screen, you notice I've just gone to, you don't have to use that from TimeSolv. You can just get to your app store and just do a search in your app store, whether you're on an iPhone or you're on Google for Authenticator, and there'll be a lot that come up. This is the Microsoft Authenticator right here with this little blue with the lock icon. This is the Google Authenticator. There's one that's very popular as well called Authy that a lot of people like. And by the way, I don't have my mouse, so I am basically the second row down on my phone. That blue one says Authenticator, second one says Authenticator, and the third one says Authy. Right next to my fourth one that says CQ Hotels. So that's the second row down on that you're looking at. And I'm going to tap on the blue one, the Authenticator. That's the Google one. And it's looking for my Face ID. So what I'm going to do now is I want to set up TimeSolv as one of the apps that I use Google Authenticator with. So I'm going to go ahead and tap in the upper right-hand corner, that plus sign. So I tap on that plus sign, and it's asking me what kind of account are you adding. And this is where you could add a personal Microsoft account or a work or school, your Office 365 account, or just any other account like Google, Facebook, etc. I'm going to click on the other. And now what it's doing is it's wanting me to scan that QR code that was on my screen that you saw. And you see now it is showing a 6-digit number. Now I'm going to stop sharing my phone and I'm going to start sharing my screen again. Now in here, I'm going to enter that same 6-digit code, 039220. And it's now logged me in. Then every time that you have it two-factor authentication turned on, or if it's daily, weekly, whatever, whenever it asks you, you go to log into TimeSolv and it asks you for that. And I'll log out again here. I think I did it every time. So when I go to log in this next time, after I've set up Authenticator, I go to log in. It's going to ask me for that 6-digit code. So I'm going to go back to my Google Authenticator app, tap on that TimeSolv app that I set up, and it's giving me another 6-digit code again. It refreshes this code every 30 seconds. And let me share my screen. I want to make there on my phone again, just so you guys are pretty clear on how this works. Okay. So if you notice, I'm going back to, let's just start from the very beginning. I'm going to go back to the Authenticator app. Boom. My Face ID. You can see that TimeSolv now is down at the bottom, and it's giving me a number with a countdown timer saying this number will change in 15 seconds. I can tap on TimeSolv, and again, it's going to show me that same number. So I got 10 seconds to put it in. I'm going to let it just roll here and refresh, and it'll give me another fresh number for 30 seconds. So I'm going to stop sharing here. Let's share my screen. I come back over here into the two-factor authentication screen. I still got 17 seconds, it looks like. On my phone, I'm looking at 649 267. And now I'm in again. Authenticator app is a great way and very secure way to authenticate people, and it's pretty quick as well. You don't have to worry about getting a text message. You don't have to worry about getting an email. You just open up that Authenticator app, tap on your particular software that you might have listed, in this case TimeSolv, and it's always going to have a 6-digit code that it just refreshes every 30 seconds that you can enter when you need to enter it. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off 2FA now. Any questions on that, on two-factor authentication and how it works, how it behaves? Again, if you have any issues with 2FA, our support people will be able to help you out with that. Okay, I don't see any questions coming in, so let's move along to our last topic, and that is applying two taxes to an invoice. We're going to stay under account and settings. And if you notice, right above the security area is this tax area. And you can change the label that will appear on an invoice from just a general tax to whatever you want to call it. So you could maybe call the first tax is an admin fee. And, the second tax is, Scott's retirement fund. You can call it whatever you want. You don't have to call it a tax. But the idea here is you are calculating, I should say, an additional percentage on top of the regular invoice. Now, you can also put in any ID numbers here. As you can, oftentimes if there's a tax ID number you need to include or whatever, you can also include those over here and save that. And more importantly, you can also check a box here if you want to make sure that, or if you want to have the second tax calculate on top of the tax that's already been applied the first time. I'm going to change this to tax 1, tax 2 again, just to make it a little easier for people to see, because you can see the labels change completely and fully. So what this means if I toggle this box is, say I have an invoice for $100 and I set up my tax 1 to be 10%. So now the invoice is really $110. And then if you apply tax 2 on tax 1 also, that means tax 2 is going to calculate off that $110. So if tax 2 is also 10%, now it's going to tax 11%. So now we have a $121 tax. So that should make sense to everybody. So then the obvious question is, well, where do I apply the percentages here? And you can do that. What's nice, you can separate the tax that you want to apply or any fees you want to apply between time and expenses, because oftentimes you perhaps maybe don't want to apply an additional fee to expenses, or maybe you just want to do expenses. Maybe you have an overriding admin fee, for copies or just any expenses, you automatically do that. You'd go under, in this case, again, my TimeSolv demo account, I'm using the term cost, the label cost instead of expenses. I'm going to go under settings, which is, by the way, where I could change that label to expense if I wanted to, just to make it easier. And now this is where, under that expense settings, where I can set what is the rate going to be for tax 1 and tax 2. Okay, you would enter that there. Same thing over in the time entry setting. Again, time, tax 1 rate, tax 2 rate. Okay, so it will calculate on just time or just expenses or both if you set it up. Important to note as well, when you, if you have specific clients or matters that you want to exclude or override the tax settings, you can do that here at the client level. Sorry, I thought it was at the matter level. You can put the taxable status as not taxable, or you can do taxable And then it'll show you what you've already set up with time and expense entries. And if you need to override the firm settings, you can do that as well. So you can get pretty detailed with the tax status of specific clients if need be. Kind of nice to be able to do that. Or you can even do taxable by activity as well, as you can see, and override it if need be. And then set up a tax on the activity, each activity code that you have. But again, that's getting really granular. Then if you want to make sure that obviously this information, these taxes show up on the invoice itself and that it's clear, you want to make sure that you have that turned on in your flexible billing template. So again, I'm going to go over my settings here, invoice settings to flexible templates. I'm going to edit the flexible billing template here. And under main page, this is where I can turn on, I can show tax 1, I can show tax 2. This ABM, this is specifically for any of our clients. We do have many clients in Australia. This is an Australian business number that is required to appear on invoices. So this is where you turn these on. They will now appear on an invoice. I don't have any drafts I can create here in this that I don't think, well, I guess I do have one created here. So let's quickly, although you know what, I didn't set my, hang on, before I do that, before I do any of this, let's come in here and just say this is going to be 2%, this is going to be 4% on time entries and expense entries. 2%, 4%. Okay. So then I'm going to click on the dollar amount to edit. As everyone hopefully knows, I can edit my flexible billing template right here. And under main page, I'm going to say, yep, I want to turn these on, update that. Then if I go to preview this, it should pull. Again, I don't know where this draft's exactly coming from, so I'm kind of flying blind here a little bit. Yeah, it's not showing properly. So I'm not going to worry about it right now. I wanted to show you guys this, but being in this different account, I don't have the ability to really kind of do much with this right now. So I'm just going to leave it as is and not try to wrestle with it. Probably had to delete the draft. Now that I think about it, I probably should have voided out that draft and recreated a draft. That would make it appear. Okay, questions on 2 taxes. Okay. Well, that is going to do it for today's Wednesday webinar. As always, if you have any questions about what you saw, you can send an email to us at support@timesolv.com. You can call our support line at that 1-800 number, extension 2. And if you have ideas, suggestions on TimeSolv, go to timesolv.ideas.aha.io. That is our suggestions portal. And I know I've brought this up before, but I'll show you all again. This is the place where not only can you make suggestions on how to improve TimeSolv, but where you can view other suggestions and upvote them. And that's critical because your suggestion you have may already exist. So I'd come in here and search the suggestions and determine if maybe my idea is one that's already been out there. Then you find it and you can upvote on it. And this really helps our developers, our product managers, determine what projects they should be working on next. So if you have like this 8 vote, for example, for past, I don't know what this idea is, past due balance invoices. In other words, they want to make it something a little bit different from than the actual statement. They want a past due balance invoice. Hey, 8 upvotes means that, likely we'll probably start implementing that. And you can go in here, if you see this, you can go and take a look at the ideas that are planned, those that have already happened, and so on. So this is a great resource tool. There's, again, this is why we do those Wednesday webinars. You might be making a suggestion that for a feature that already exists that you just didn't know about, and you can view those as well. Okay, well, that is going to do it then for today's Wednesday webinar. I will be sending out an email with a link to this recording so that you can watch this at your convenience. And we will hopefully see you. It will be, let's see, April 7th, day after my birthday. April 7th April 14th will be our next Wednesday webinar. That is the second Wednesday of April. April actually begins on a Thursday, so we're going to be almost halfway through April by the time we get to our Wednesday webinar. So day before tax day, dun, dun, dun. Anyway, everybody, enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of your week. And look for that email probably either later today or sometime tomorrow with the recording of this session so you can watch it when you need to. Thank you very much, everybody, and have a great, like I said, rest of your week.